Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions, utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with Green Sky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
Well, we got a week off for Thanksgiving, and now we are back for the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show once again. Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee. Week 13 is upon us. And Vince, before we go any further, how was Thanksgiving for you?
Excellent. It was great. How was yours?
It was good. It was good. Enjoyed good food. Got to relax a little bit. You had Friday night off. First Friday night off from high school football in a long time since before the season started. And now we have state championships coming up here this week. So I am looking forward to states, obviously, but enjoyed the break that I got.
It's funny because I thought I was going to have the weekend off, and then I ended up getting kind of thrust into action there last second on Friday. But I got lucky, man, because that was one of the best high school football games I've ever seen. I've been on a roll. Like, my last couple of weeks of games have been real good. So Avon had them. Avon was up the whole game, and then a few mistakes, few crucial decisions, and it went Hoban's way. So you and I will be in Canton in a few days, and we will get our high school one last high school football fix, my friend. I bought a new coat, a new winter hat, ready for the cold, ready to go. But I do hope it's supposed to be like 50 degrees on the one day, so we'll see how it goes.
It will still be cold up next to the glass. I'm sure we'll be front row like we typically are, and it is cold in that front row, that's for sure. But looking forward to those couple days, all 7 divisions of state championship games. Going to be long and tiring, but a good time. And before we get to our picks here, Vince, I'm going to give you the floor to rant if you need to. It's the second time this season I have gone 5-0 in a week when we've had a bunch of picks different. And if it weren't for those 2 5-0 weeks, I'd be trailing significantly. But now I've marched back from 4 down to 1 ahead. I'll let you go if you have anything to say.
It's a pretty nifty coat you have on with the BW there. I noticed it right away. Looks pretty good. As far as rants go, not much to say. Lost a lot of one-score games, which is the toughest way to do it, but I really can't complain too much because, a couple weeks in a row, I just beat you with one-score games and games where your teams had a chance in every one of those situations to win at the end and couldn't do it. My thing is I'm more so upset, and we'll talk about it in a bit, of the game that I didn't pick, that I should have went with what I figured and knew was going to happen with Denver. Cleveland going into Mile High Stadium. Well, I still call it Mile High, but going into Denver, I had a hunch that was going to happen, and that's something we picked the same. So I'm more so upset about those because, quite frankly, I don't think either one of us went out on any huge limbs. I just don't feel that we did. Those are the breaks, but I actually feel pretty good, only being down by 1, considering that there's been, like you said, 10 points. My God, you figured 2 0-5 weeks, I'd be getting annihilated. So I like this. I looked back in our history last year, going into Canton, I was down 6. So just to be down by 1 instead of 6, I'll take that any day of the week.
Well, obviously, it was a good 14-2 week for me. I'll take it. You still were above 500 at 9-7. The one that I was tempted to take and I didn't take is an upset, and I should have. When I came across it on Thanksgiving Day, I was looking at it. I'm thinking, man, tradition. Every single year, the Lions lose on Thanksgiving Day. It's just it's a Thanksgiving Day tradition. I'm like, no, this Lions team is too good to lose. against the Packers. Well, they played poorly to start that game, and they were chasing from the jump, and they ended up losing, and I was kicking myself I didn't take that one. Aside from that, I mean, I will take it. A week where only 2 losses, and one of them just so happened to be the Browns, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. But that was the only one I probably kicked myself on, but I can't really fault myself too much there. So just because that Packers team's not very good, and the Lions probably ultimately on paper, and they play that game 10 times, I bet the Lions would have won it probably 7 or 8 times this year. So we'll get to the picks here. If you have anything to touch on with that before we get to Thursday night, but I'm sure you were tempted by that game.
A little bit, only because of the tradition of them losing, So it's funny you say that. Said the same thing to my daughters. It's the same rant I have every week, my man. It wasn't exactly prime time, but it was the first ever Black Friday football game, and who's playing in it but the Jets? I am so sick of the Jets. Just to kind of wrap things up real quick here, kind of put a bow on last week, I should say. I just feel like I went on a limb, taking the Saints on the road, taking Tampa Bay on the road, taking New England on the road, and having all 3 of those teams cave in on me. It's frustrating. The one that was actually, when I first looked at everything, and I thought in my brain, I'll make this my upset pick, was Houston. And they were getting the brakes kind of beat off of them in the fourth quarter, down by 10 with like 3 minutes to go. And I'm thinking like, okay, it is what it is. But it comes down to CJ Stroud on the 4th and 12. And I know we disagreed, and that's fine. But Houston going for a 58-yard field goal. He had been sacked. And I kind of see it because Stroud had been sacked 2 or 3 plays. 2 of the last 3 plays by Josh Allen. Ironically enough, the guy's name is Josh Allen for Jacksonville. So it was a 4th and 12. He looked a little banged up, but and we're going to get to in a bit. But with the way that game ended, with how Houston lost that game, with how CJ Stroud reacted, I don't know if you saw it, because I know, again, it was Thanksgiving weekend. And I don't know if you're on the road at this point. He kind of whined and cried like a baby on the sidelines. Like, didn't really expect that out of CJ Stroud. But because of that, that is actually going to affect how I picked the Houston-Denver game. But we'll get to that a little bit later.
So let's go to Thursday night, though.
Yep.
Thursday night actually could be a very good matchup. It's a Seattle team that San Francisco handled them this past week. They took care of business against Seattle on the road in Seattle at Lumen Field. That's a tough place to go play. It's loud, and San Francisco ultimately got the job done. Now, that's a Seattle team that I actually think is still good. In a weak NFC, they should securely get a wild card spot this year. I don't think there's any question there on that. But they may drop another game here against Dallas, a Dallas team that they're good. Are they good enough to make a run in the postseason? Probably not, but they're definitely good enough to get a wild card spot, potentially the 5th seed, and have a better record than whoever wins the NFC South. That's for sure. So going into this game, Vince, I am going to say that Dallas, because they're at home, they're going to win this one. But I think it's going to be actually pretty close. Dallas has been pretty convincing in some of these games lately. Their offense has been humming. It's been purring. They've looked pretty good. But I think it's going to slow down this week against a Seattle team that's better against the run this year. I think their secondary is good. CeeDee Lamb might get slowed down a little bit, but he's not going to be fully stopped. Ultimately, though, I think Dak Prescott, Pollard, we can run down the list of all their weapons that they have on offense. I think they have just enough to win this game. And Geno Smith has been stumbling a little bit as of late. He was really good last year. He's taken a couple steps back this year. And you wonder if he's actually going to be the guy of the future now for Seattle. They might change their plans for down the road at quarterback. But I have this one going Dallas's way, 24-20, in an actually decent ball game, but low scoring like most Thursday nights are.
Amazingly enough, we talked about the Lions losing on Thanksgiving becoming a tradition. This is now the 4th straight year where I will be in Canton covering the high school football state championships, and the Dallas Cowboys are playing on Thursday night. I don't know if you recall, but they played, I think it was last year against the Patriots, and we were watching it in the press box. So just kind of funny that here we go again, another Thursday night. You and I are at Canton, and the Cowboys are on the TV. So that silliness aside, they're a good team this year. The problem with them, with Dallas, is that they're undisciplined. A lot of stupid penalties. Every now and then they get a turnover bug, and we still don't know what we have in Tony Pollard, right? He finally broke that drought of scoring last week. They look good. They had a streak there, but at the same time, in that game against Washington, they went an entire third quarter without scoring at all. So we've seen peaks and valleys with this Dallas Cowboy team. Do I feel they're talented enough to make a run in the playoffs? Yes, I do. Only because of the fact that, to me, and I have a hunch that we're going to end up talking about these two teams a little bit later on. I kind of feel like it's Philadelphia and San Francisco and maybe everybody else in that conference, right? I mean, Dallas is right up there, but you look at the NFC South, which not very good. Atlanta's probably going to win that. But you look at that and you think, okay, well, if Dallas lines up on that side of the bracket again, like they did last year, I believe it was, and had to go into Tampa Bay and win on the road first round of the playoffs, it could happen, right? So those are the things that could happen again where, Dallas sets themselves up as a wild card and goes into either Atlanta or New Orleans or whoever comes out of the South and does that again. So is that a deep run, only winning one game? It's not. But to say they won't win any games in the playoffs, I would have to disagree with that. And I know that's not what you said. Just putting it out there. As far as the pick goes, this should be a very winnable game for the Cowboys. I do foresee them winning it. And I also agree with you. I think it's going to be a one-score game. I think we're in for another fun night of not only high school football, but, peeking at your little iPad a couple times and seeing how that one's going. As you can see the smile. I'm just excited thinking about it.
Yep. There is going to be plenty of streaming of games throughout that weekend in Canton as well. So watching the high school games down on the field, and then, of course, seeing what's happening for the college football championship games on Friday and Saturday, and then, of course, Thursday night football. So a lot of football action, not only just down on the field, but on the iPad as well.
If you wanted to follow Cole and I for 72 straight hours, this would be the weekend to do it. That's all I'll say. This is... You see, I forget how they say how the soup's made or how the bread's made. If you want to go behind the scenes on Keon Sports and why we do what we do and how we do what we do, this would be the weekends.
If you're a football fan, you'd love it. If you don't care nearly as much as we do, you might get bored of all the football that we watch. But it's a good weekend. We enjoy it, at least. So we're on the same page with the Cowboys, both taking them on Thursday night. Of course, you and I will get to watch that game together. On Sunday, though, we'll be back home, exhausted, and the Chiefs go up against the Packers on the road in Lambeau. Maybe going to be cold there. Obviously, I know we just had the cold front with the snow that came through. Then it's supposed to warm up. So might not be like blistering Green Bay temperatures in the playoffs type of weather. But still, you'd assume this time of year it's at least going to be chilly. Can that slow down the offense of the Chiefs? This Packers team, you and I both have agreed that they're not that good. You and I had our disagreements about Jordan Love earlier in the year. I think we've started to get on the same page a little bit more with Jordan Love. But the Chiefs going to Lambeau, is there a possibility that the Chiefs falter? Because they did start slow against the Raiders.
Yeah, there's a chance. I just don't think they will because the Packers don't have that knockout punch, right? They might hang around for a little bit, but eventually Jordan Love's going to shoot himself in the foot. They had a real nice win, the Packers did, way back. I think it was week 2, week 2 or 3. This was week 3, at home, coming back to beat the Saints when they were down big. They did it again. They beat the Lions. No one saw that coming. They've had a few impressive outings where people were like, wow, Love might be the guy. They might not be, so bad off without him. But at the end of the day, I do not believe they have nearly what it takes to knock off the Chiefs. This is really, too, when the Chiefs kick it into high gear. Coming into December on is really when they play their best football. Andy Reid's going to be, he's going to be amped up. They came off a loss to the Eagles, 2 weekends ago, come out of a bye. Didn't see that coming. As you said, started slow against the Raiders. I think they finally kind of hit that stride again. I'm not going to go out way out on a limb here and say it's going to be a blowout. Who knows what the weather's going to be? But Sunday Night Football, regardless, excited for this one. Yeah, definitely going to go with the Chiefs. Probably a 2-touchdown game at the most. I don't foresee some huge blowout.
I will go out on a limb. Blowout. Chiefs 34, Packers 17. I don't think Green Bay is going to put up many points against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are ultimately going to get the job done, get the win. Is it going to be the most high-powered, high-flying offensive performance? Probably not, but I think it's going to be enough to score enough points. And I do think that Chiefs defense, they get plays when they need to make plays. They're not the Ravens defense. They're not the Browns defense. They're not that caliber, but they do make plays when they need it. And so I wouldn't be surprised if against Jordan Love, he throws a couple picks, gets his team in bad positions, and the Chiefs have a short field to work with. And you know what happens when the Chiefs have a short field. They score, and they score quick. So might not be these super long sustained drives, but ultimately I think they're going to put up plenty of points to win this thing. I really don't have any faith in that Packers team and Jordan Love. Their season, I think, probably peaked at the Thanksgiving win against the Detroit Lions. I think that's going to be their highest of highs that they're going to have this year before we hit the offseason. So that's about all I have to say about Green Bay. The Chiefs are still one of the best teams in the AFC, and that's pretty straightforward.
Only thing I'll say about this, because you know me, I love my history. Rematch of Super Bowl I. So first ever, Super Bowl there. And every year, when Rodgers was on the Packers, not last year, but a couple of years ago, really 2 or 3 years in a row, a lot of people, including myself, thought this could very easily have been a Super Bowl matchup. Would have been cool because of the history involved. But yeah, definitely not this year. The Chiefs should roll.
Yeah, another one that people thought that the matchup might actually happen or be pretty good. Not necessarily in the Super Bowl, right? But there's a reason why this one was put on primetime on Monday Night Football is because everybody thought, oh, okay, Trevor Lawrence against Joe Burrow, the Jags and the Bengals. This is going to be really good. This is probably a Bengals team that's going to be competing for the North. And you have a Jacksonville team who they're the favorites in the South. This is going to be an incredible game on Monday Night Football. And then the Joe Burrow injury happens. He's out for the year. And now we get Jake Browning versus Trevor Lawrence. And Vince, I'm going to just put it this way. That Bengals team has a lot of talent. Their offensive line has improved. It's still not a very good offensive line. They're still taking strides to try to get in the right direction to protect their quarterback. So I bet they're going to make some moves, at least in the offseason. They should. But that offense can't do anything with Jake Browning. So that being said, Jacksonville, they're on a little run here right now where they looked good against Houston. They looked good in their game before against Tennessee. They're on a run. They're going to keep it rolling against the Bengals. I have them winning 23-13. And I think Cincinnati, they may only get one more win the rest of the year, if not lose out. They have a tough schedule. And ultimately, with the talent they have, they might as well just, throw in the towel and get a top 10 pick so they can maybe get a good offensive tackle, reshuffle the line a little bit so you can protect Burrow next year. But this season's pretty much done for the Bengals.
I agree. And I think, too, obviously, we always talk about the Bengals and that offensive line. But, stranger things have happened. I mean, if they end up with like the 7th or 8th pick and nobody knows the draft better than you and Brandon Soder-Penner, I'll say that. You'll be able to tell me more in a couple months here. But, man, I wouldn't mind seeing another receiver either. Like, I think that'd be deadly to line up, a big-name receiver there to go with Chase. But to me, that's almost like taking a want over a need. You know what I mean? You would have to believe if there's a top 5 offensive lineman on the board when they pick in the first round, which I believe there should be, they need to fulfill that gap. But yeah, this is probably used to be a game that, when you fill out your little book in the beginning of the season and you predict the whole year, this is one you would circle as a must watch, but not too much going on this Monday night that's really going to pique our interest. Not that last week did if we didn't pick it different. I mean, what a clunker that was, 12-10 with with the Bears there. So again, see what happens. Like I always say, but I think it's a safe pick. I really think all three of our picks so far are safe picks. If I could be bold enough to say that after coming off a 9-6 week or whatever it was, 10-6,
9-7,
something that didn't add up. But regardless, I think Jacksonville is a pretty safe pick.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say all those picks we've made so far are safe, and I probably made a lot of safe picks this week. I didn't see a lot of things that I loved when it came to upset wise. There were a couple that maybe piqued my interest, but the one that really piqued my interest is one that might have caught your attention due to the line as well. So, Vince, I'm going to toss it to you as always. Go ahead with your upset pick this week.
Well, here's the thing. This was a game where, to me, it didn't matter who the favorite or the underdog was going to be. Now, it works out that Philadelphia's the underdog, and that's why I'm taking them. So, Philadelphia at home, a 3-point underdog to San Francisco. I'm taking the Eagles. I feel like they're not getting a lot of respect, and it kind of bugs me. They handled Kansas City. They handled Buffalo. They have handled Dallas, I think twice. I got to go back and look, but they have every big test you've given this Philadelphia team this season. They've been able to handle and play well. Now the thought process is this: San Francisco's coming in. I don't think Climate Tech's gonna get too mad for me saying this, but I think they're coming in pissed off, quite frankly, because San Francisco thinks back to the NFC Championship last year. They think about what might have happened if Brock Purdy didn't get knocked out of that game so early, and they're rolling. I mean, they traded, they lost 3 straight, San Francisco did. They traded for Chase Young. They've been playing unbelievable since. Great defense, all that stuff. But Philadelphia, a very tough place to win for road teams. I want to see Brock Purdy do it. When it comes to upsets, I think, this is really the least of the upsets. There's a couple other games, and it'll be interesting to see how we go with them. But I'm just going to throw it out there. You look at a game like Tennessee, Indianapolis, 1-point spread there with Indy the favorite on the road. Just found out Jonathan Taylor's not playing. So there's a lot of different ways I could have went this week. But as far as the show goes and my decision, I feel pretty strong with Philadelphia. And if I'm going to roll the dice on an upset, I felt like this was the one to do.
Well, the Eagles are being disrespected, and it's mostly from Cowboys fans. Let's face it. And there's a lot of national media who are Cowboys fans themselves as well.
Yeah, big time.
And they're saying that, this Eagles team, they're really not that good. Their record's deceiving. They've gotten lucky. The Cowboys are better. I mean, that's just grasping at straws at this point. Sure, the Cowboys have had more blowout wins this year than what the Eagles have had, but any test the Eagles have been thrown, they've overcome it. A win's a win, and they just managed to win every single time they go up against a good team. You mentioned it, Buffalo, they got it done in overtime, right?
They got it done.
The Chiefs, they just continue to win, no matter whether it's pretty or not. They win the football game. Their only loss was to the Jets, and that was just a surprise upset at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Any good test you've thrown at them, they've won the ball game. It's why they have the best record in the NFL, Vince.
You said it, Cole. You said it. They just win. They find a way to win, and that's why I'm comfortable with this. They call it the old push tush and all that nonsense, but they find
brotherly shove. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? The brotherly shove. Sorry, the push tush must be for something else.
Tush push.
Anyways,
got it flipped. Yeah.
They find a way. They find a way to get it done. It's not pretty. And like I said, at the same time, if San Francisco wins, it's not going to shock me by any stretch. I really, truly believe this is the best 2 teams in the NFC. And if they're not the best 2 teams, hey, somebody else jump up and surprise me. That's cool too. Would love to see it. I don't believe anything anybody else is doing currently at this point is really that able to compete with them. I know there's a third team, and it's just not striking me at this moment. But I just feel like, this might be another preview of the NFC Championship game. And again, I don't think I'm really going out on too much of a limb when I say that.
No, that's fair. And I'm with you. I took the Eagles. This is my upset pick because the line's crazy. For them to only have one loss this season, to have the best record in the NFL, to be at home and you had them as a 3-point underdog, that's wild to me. I know that the 49ers are good, and they added Chase Young opposite of Nick Bosa, and they already had a good defensive line, and now they're even just more stacked. You have Fred Warner. Their defense had their ups and downs this year. It's a good defense, but they haven't been as flawless as some other seasons we've seen in the past. Offensively, McCaffrey's just as good as normal. Debo's probably dropped off a little bit, but Ayuk's been good. And like I said, I mean, I just mentioned him already. I said McCaffrey's been great, but I mean, I have to give him more props than that. McCaffrey is otherworldly in the way that he plays, the way he can run the ball, the way he catches the ball. I mean, you even saw him they had 2 screwdrivers to his helmet, working on screwing things back in. He looks like the Bionic Man, right? Gets dinged up, banged up, but he stayed healthy this year. McCaffrey's actually had good health in his time in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what Carolina was doing with him with, strength training and flexibility and all those things, or maybe it's just pure luck, but he goes to San Francisco and he stays healthy. Regardless, that San Francisco team, they're good, right? But the Eagles continue to win, like I mentioned. And ultimately, Jalen Hurts is better than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy runs their system so well in San Francisco. It's a perfect fit for him. But if you put Brock Purdy in any other system out there, he's nothing more than a backup quarterback. I wholeheartedly believe that. He's good. He manages a game well. He's not great. He doesn't have the ability to go to another level, right?
Agreed.
You take him, you send him to Carolina, and he'd have just as many problems as Bryce Young's having right now, because Bryce Young's even a slight bit more athletic than Brock Purdy. So, I mean, it's just the perfect fit for him. It works out. He's a good player. But when it comes down to it, if this is tight, neck and neck, you need a quick score. I think that the Eagles can move the ball a little bit quicker. And again, how can you stop them on 3rd and 4th and short? It's basically impossible. They have the brotherly shove, as they call it, down to a science. The percentage of them making that is almost as good as 100%, basically. So the thing is, I have the Eagles winning this one 31-27, 1-score ball game. It's going to be a fun one. I'm going to enjoy that game. But ultimately, like I said, I agree with you that Philadelphia wins that one, Vince.
Feeling good about this game, too. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yep. Well,
real quick, I wanted to touch on your Brock Purdy comment.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Let me explain to you why. One of the best quarterbacks of all time is Tom Brady. Nobody in their right mind is going to tell you any different, right? I think he's in everybody's top 5. Say it as it is, okay? Tom Brady in 2001. Well, he got drafted in 2000. Tom Brady in 2000 when he got drafted, okay? He goes to the Bears. You're probably not going to hear that's going to be it. He goes to the Browns. That sure as hell would have been it. There's probably 7 or 8 teams that he went to that Tom Brady never would have heard from him again. Sometimes when people show up in the right system and they get off to the right start and the right coaching and the right support, they can go on to a Hall of Fame career. Tom Brady sure as hell did. Now, did Tom Brady get a lot better as his career went? Yes, he did. As I said, I think he became one top 5 of all time. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. I simply use him as an example because this is kind of the path right now that Brock Purdy's on. You have to believe if he stays with the same coach, the same system, the same receivers, he could probably have a pretty good career. Here's what I'll say, though. In a tight situation, I would actually prefer Jalen Hurts to lead the last second 2-minute drive over Brock Purdy. Mm-hmm. And again, that's another, when I flip the coin on that game, because there's another one I'll throw out there real quick before we get to the Browns. When I flipped the coin, I was like, all right, what game am I going to decide to do this with? That's kind of how I went down with that. So that being said, kind of cool that we both picked it. The other one I will throw out there, finally for the first time in a couple of weeks, couldn't hold this up, actually picked against them for the sole reason of how Houston lost the game, the way they lost it, how I brought that up. If not, let's say Houston won, I actually would have picked Denver, but I think CJ Stroud's going to come out like a man on fire this coming week, which spells doom for Denver.
I'm with you. I took Houston as well. Well, Denver ultimately beat the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns shot themselves in the foot for sure, multiple times there. And the Browns, they stay out west. They didn't come back. They got to stay out there as they go up against the Los Angeles Rams. And I want to start by going back to last week's game here briefly. And what I want to say is this. I almost wonder, because I saw a theory on social media, and it might actually have some validity, right? In the sense of, you had to have known that they wanted to run that football, right? You would think that Stefanski, he knows the Denver Broncos are the 32nd ranked run defense. They're the worst in the league this year. We should run this football if we want to win the game. I almost wonder if in his mind, he was thinking, we have a solid 7-3 record right now. We're securely in a playoff spot, right? This is one of those games where if we drop it, it's not the end of the world, right? We're still securely in a playoff spot. Certainly, we have to then win more games this year, but I believe in this team that we can do it. Let me take my chance here. If we lose, we lose. That sucks, right? But let me see what DTR can do. Let's see if we can throw the ball a bunch. I want to see if he has the ability to be the guy the rest of the year when we get in situations where we need to throw that ball. And it will kind of allow me to determine whether we need to go to Flacco, whether we need to stick with DTR, what. So the thing is you're thinking, run the ball. Jerome Ford, first couple carries, he's breaking off big gains, and you're like, keep running it. Keep running it. You're going to win this game if you just control the time of possession. You just run this football with Jerome Ford. And they barely ran it. They was pass constantly with DTR, and it wasn't panning out. He made some decent throws. He actually did some good things. It wasn't perfect. There wasn't much down the field, but he did a pretty good job with most of his decisions. He managed the game well, but they ultimately could have controlled the time of possession, had probably bigger gains maybe, and been more effective if they just ran it. But I actually think Stefanski was testing DTR. Let's see what he can do just throwing it, airing it out, seeing if we're going to stick with him or whether we're going to go to Flacco. Ultimately, it kind of got them chasing from the jump, and they couldn't come back. They couldn't win the game. There were mistakes that were made, and too many drop passes from Amari Cooper specifically. David Njoku had a few drops, but I think Amari Cooper's 2-point conversion drop was the most important dropper of all of them in that game. There was a lot that went wrong, injuries, all those things. It didn't pan out with winning that ball game, but I think that's something where Stefanski got his answers. DTR, when he's healthy again, he may be somebody they might want to toss back out there again and see what he can do. But the problem is he got knocked out of the game, so you probably have to go to Joe Flacco this week. I don't think there's any way he's going to get cleared for this game with the concussion that quickly. We'll wait and see what happens as the week progresses. But ultimately, my expectation is that Flacco will be elevated from the practice squad. He'll be the guy probably going this weekend. So it makes me want to turn to this game. So you probably have another quarterback under center, a guy who's probably going to want to play in a little bit more like a Jacoby Brissett-based system. So you're going to have to change your whole game plan, because take out any of the running plays, because Joe Flacco is about the slowest quarterback ever on the face of the earth. Good arm, good history, and really held in high esteem in NFL history, right, for what he did in his time with the Ravens. Had some good moments with the Jets last year, but I think he's going to, again, be a guy to manage the game, might take a couple shots downfield, but I think then you have to turn that focus to running the ball and then open the game up with play action. So against the Rams, regardless of what happens with Myles Garrett, his injury, all those things, I am going to say that they bounce back. I have concerns about this game, because of how things panned out against the Broncos. But I do think that this team's too talented, even if Myles Garrett wasn't playing. You have Obo Okoronkwo and Zadarius Smith still. Very good defensive ends. I think Joe Flacco is still good enough to manage the game against a Rams team that I haven't been impressed with this year. So ultimately, I'm going to say Cleveland wins this one 20-16. They got me last week, but this week, I do think they at least get a win from this West Coast trip.
The Rams have been very good to me this season. Every time I pick them in a crucial situation, especially when we split, they seem to win. This was the first game I picked this week. Usually I pick the Browns game first. This time, I'm sorry, last. Usually I pick the Browns game last. This time I picked them first. I'm unbelievably confident the Rams win this game. The Browns are banged up. They don't look good. They don't look good when they're healthy. They don't look like a good football team right now. If they could get Flacco under center as soon as possible, I think the season is very salvageable. Very, very salvageable. They still play teams like the Bengals, the Jets, the Bears. I like the Browns' schedule, and I see at least 3 more wins, if not more. This, to me, is a game for them, though, where it's I would say a get-right game. But if you don't have the players in there that you need, you know what I mean? Watson ain't coming back, Chubb ain't coming back. We've already dealt with that. That's old news. That's history. But you need to figure out something here because, like you said, you can't have that game plan last week without it being pretty obvious to me. As you said, I kind of feel like Stefanski said, hey, we got one to play with. Let's see if this kid can throw the ball, right? To me, that's kind of how that felt. What I liked, this might sound crazy right now, but let's say even if DTR played that game through, didn't get hurt, played all the way through, and the Broncos still won, I think coming into this week with a healthy DTR, and if he would have played well, I actually probably would have picked them to beat the Rams because I kind of liked what they did there on a couple of rollouts with him. He looked pretty serviceable. So you're really looking at DTR coming into this game still probably a little dinged up or maybe a little shell-shocked there, or a guy who hasn't thrown the football in well over a year. Now, I'll say this to conclude. I still think that with Joe Flacco under center, maybe not this week, but moving forward, with him under center, the Browns are a threat to at least they're going to win. They're going to go to the playoffs, I believe, with Flacco. I truly do. How far they go from there, we'll see. This guy's not bad. He's really not. He's a leader. The guy's a Super Bowl MVP. He's a champion. His mentality is something that DTR is not going to give you. PJ Walker sure as heck ain't going to give you. You just got to hope he holds on to the ball, doesn't fumble it, because he's going to get sacked quite a bit. Aaron Donald and those guys are going to be coming on strong. Just hold on to the ball. Don't turn it over. The Browns will have a chance. All in all, though, with Myles Garrett, like I said, Myles Garrett banged up. There's just a lot of things right now in Cleveland that are just a little iffy, a little touch and go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say the Rams one more time, as I figured this is probably going to be one of the games that we split. And here we are.
Well, I've heard this a bunch about Joe Flacco sitting on his couch not too long ago, but he's not that far off from Matt Stafford. And Matthew Stafford, people might think, wait a second, what are you saying that Joe Flacco and Matthew Stafford are comparable right now? Kind of. How far of a fall has Matthew Stafford taken since winning that Super Bowl? My goodness.
Well,
I mean, his
he got hurt
elbow.
bad last year.
Yeah, he had his elbow injury where he couldn't put any velocity on the football. He was. It wasn't the normal Matt Stafford, and then he was out for that extended long stretch, and Baker Mayfield even was a guy who ended up filling in there. And then this year,
that's right.
He's never really fully bounced back to what he was previously, and then he's still been banged up a little bit. I think he had a finger or a wrist injury here. They were talking about this past week. So his thumb. So Matthew Stafford really has fallen to being one of the probably lesser starting quarterbacks in the league, which is crazy because he was in the upper half just 2 years ago.
I agree with that.
He was a great quarterback.
Well, look at the weapons he has, though, and that's the thing. With Puka Nacua stepping up like he has, Cooper Kupp, if he could stay healthy, they still have a chance. I mean, the NFC is so wide open. It's so terrible. Once you get past those top 3 teams, even top 4 teams, I think the Rams have a chance to sneak in as a wild card, but these are the kind of games they need to win. I just see this as a bad 2-week spell for the Browns. Now, again, I'll say it again. If this is like 3 weeks from now and they're playing this game, I'm probably going to pick the Browns. I just think that it's going to take Flacco a little bit of time to get accumulated. I still think he's the answer. I do. If you were to tell me which Cleveland Browns quarterback do you want to see under center for the rest of the season, I'm going to tell you Joe Flacco in a heartbeat. I don't even have to think about it. It's going to take some time, though, going with the Rams. Puka Nacua is actually the guy's damn good. You know, he's not just a cool name. He's actually a really good receiver. If he could stay healthy, if Cooper Kupp could stay healthy, if Stafford could, again, be serviceable, they should not only be able to beat the Browns, but again, I want to be shocked if they make a late run at the playoffs that nobody sees coming, because you're not going to get anybody out of the South except the division winner. The East is going to throw you two teams, Dallas and Philadelphia. And then after that, it's a crapshoot. You know what I mean? You don't know what you're getting out of that. I always call it the Central, but technically now it's the North with Green Bay, Detroit. So you're going to get Detroit, Minnesota. My God. You know, I texted you, hey, the real Josh Dobbs has showed up, right? So I just feel like the Rams have it all in front of them right now if they could do it. You know, I've been a Rams fan for a long time. You know, there was a draft show back a couple of years ago. So, I seem to have blind faith in the Rams.
The one thing I didn't touch on was why I picked the Browns, and probably the biggest reason I picked the Browns. But I just want to talk about the past game and all those football-based things. They got to stay out west, right? You know how huge that is, that they didn't have to come back, go back across the country or anything. There wasn't like a gap week in between. They just got to stay out there. That allows them to kind of get settled into the hotels, practice out there, get acclimated to the time change, right? So the cool thing for them is that they got to stay, right? That actually is a huge benefit, I think, for the Cleveland Browns going into this game this week, and probably one of the biggest reasons why I think I just have a good feeling that they're just going to get it done, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against them. This team this year, there's something different about this team. As frustrated as I was with the last loss, it just feels like this is grounds for a time to step back up after is probably the most frustrating loss. This year, barring obviously what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers one where Nick Chubb went down and got injured, but I think more people were shell-shocked than actually mad in that one. This is the one where they're mad with the performance, and I know I was a part of that. So, I don't know. I just have a gut feeling, Vince.
Browns need to win. I'll tell you that. You know, they fall to 7-5. Pittsburgh has a very winnable game this week. And if Denver does find a way to knock off Houston on the road, I know we both picked Houston, but let's say Denver does win. Next thing you know, Denver's 7-5 out of nowhere. They're 7-5. They hold the tiebreaker over Cleveland. And Browns need to win this game, flat out.
Well, that's about all I've got here for this week. I know a lot of football action coming up this weekend. We talked about it, the state championship. So make sure here on the YouTube channel to pay attention to the highlight videos. But aside from that, any final thoughts for you?
No, just hope this new coat keeps me warm. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, guys, on a side note, thank you. We always say thank you to Climate Tech. They do a great job. Speaking of the cold, I actually had to drive, what for me is normally about 50 minutes to work. Turned out to be closer to 90, almost 2 hours today just to get to work. So hopefully that weather is gone for a couple of days and we can enjoy our weekend. And yeah, man, just good times ahead. Excited for this. Yep, no doubt about it. Baltimore's for real, by the way. I hate to admit it, but they look damn good.
That they do.
There's no final thoughts.
Well, sounds good. So for myself, Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, we're going to sign off. That's going to do it for us. Of course, make sure to be back with us for week 14 next week.
Climatech is a full-service company. We install as well as service both residential and commercial products. We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water. We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation.
Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction.
When you hire Climatech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.